Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. Solomon Dacres, David Adeleye, the Queensbury stablemates, they face each other the 20th of July on another Frank Warren Magnificent 7 card. And actually Frank Warren's been putting together these good little cards. This is the second in just a number of months. So more please, because good matchups, including this for the English heavyweight title. And when you consider Solomon Dacres is actually coming off a performance where he looked a little bit lackluster, and David Adeleye is coming off a loss where he actually looked decent before he got stopped by Fabio Wardley, it's quite intriguing. So this is one of these matchups as part of that sort of 4 or 5 guys floating around that domestic scene in the UK that we wanted to see facing each other. So you've had Frazer, Clarke and Fabio Wardley who seem to just separated themselves a little bit, but you also had Solomon Dacres and David Adeleye making noise. They've been in the mix. Adelaye's faced Wardley, come up short, but he has been an improving fighter. And he didn't disgrace himself in that fight. He was competitive. He just got, ultimately took too many shots as that fight wore on and got broken down and taken out. But in Dacres, he doesn't have a guy who's a big puncher. And in that Webster fight, arguably, and I'll just go to the record here, you had very tight cards where it was 96-93, 96-94, 95-95. So majority decision win. But watching that one at the time, and certainly, he didn't look good. There were some pretty shaky moments there for him. He was getting hit a lot. And you had a case where online, a lot of people thought that maybe Webster had a case for winning that fight, that perhaps he was done a little bit dirty. And Dacres is a good boxer, good technician, good skills, 6'5", decent jab. The only really knock on Dacres is he hasn't really got any power. I mean, you consider when you're coming up in the heavyweight division, generally some of the guys that you face, when you first start out, you're going to get a few soft lobs and you're going to get some knockouts. At this stage, Dacres with a record of 8-0, just the 2 KOs on the record, so not a power merchant by any stretch. And given that's the case, if you have David Adeleye, who's got a record of 12-1 at this point, coming off that loss to Fabio Wardley, but he's put in some decent performances before that against Elvis Garcia, Dimitri Bezos, and Amir Amatovic. Yeah, some of those guys are not fantastic, but he has been on an arc where, compared to 3 or 4 years ago, where arguably he lost to Kamil Sokolowski and just was looking not that good. He was looking like a strong guy that maybe wouldn't go that far. His skills have come on leaps and bounds. And also, he's managed to, the speed of some of these shots, the jab, the left hook in particular, if he catches up with you, you're in trouble. So I like this matchup for a number of reasons, because you have a case where Dacres is slightly taller than Adeleye, but the dimensions are not hugely different. And if Adeleye is able to do anything like Michael Webster was able to do, and I think he's a better fighter than Webster, this is going to be quite tasty, I think, because if you have Dacres eating some shots from the big punching Adeleye, he could end up being in trouble. I could see a case where the first few rounds, Dacres boxing and moving, but if he slows down to any real extent, as he seemed to do in the Webster fight, and became more hittable, and arguably, according to some, lost that fight, Adeleye perhaps should be going in the favourite. Remember, this is Dacres' English title. We have Adeleye having fought at a slightly higher level for the British title, obviously came up short, but I think this seemingly is quite well matched. I think people will debate whether, Dacres or Adeleye deserves to be the favourite. Is it, effectively a 50-50 or 45-55, or switch it around? I think this is good matchmaking, and with everything that's going on at the moment, we have a situation with big cards out in Saudi Arabia. You've got some aging heavyweights that will be off the scene in a year or two. They need to be bringing through some of these guys as the next wave of heavyweights that can step up into some of these bigger fights. So this is why we're seeing a lot more, I believe in the last year or two, these lower level matchups that are getting made, that are good fights, where the guy who loses can come again. A la Adeleye is coming again, and basically straight off the loss to the British title, he's fighting for the English title. But some of these guys will ultimately, if the Saudi money continues to pour into the sport and you have these different cards popping up all over the place, including in the United States and the UK eventually, then you're going to have some of these guys featuring. Maybe it'll be showcases to begin with, but they want to build them up to eventually be in bigger and better fights, because the next wave of stars needs to come through. And in the heavyweight division, there's a little bit of a drop-off in terms of the star power beyond the main sort of 5 or 6 guys. And some of the guys beyond that as well are starting to get a little bit long in the tooth as well. So the next generation is ready to step up, and they need to start putting in performances to get people noticing. And I think, the winner of this one, if they move on to potentially have a fight with a Frazer Clarke, or maybe in Adelaye's case, maybe a rematch with Fabio Wardley, or whatever the case may be, get to European level and then get to a Saudi card. There's a pathway, especially if the money is remaining in the sport with the Saudis bankrolling it. So this is a big fight for both these guys. Some people might go, it's just a domestic clash, English title, but the futures of these guys are really riding on it. And if, say for example, if Dacres lost this one, he can still come again. He's still got a skill set, and with the way things are in the heavyweight division right now, there could still be a pathway if he puts in a good performance. If he got battered and bruised and knocked out in a couple of rounds, maybe that makes it a little bit harder. But I think, this is going either one of two ways. You have a situation where Dacres boxes smart, he boxes to a decision, but is he going to have the gas to go there? Will he be able to avoid taking anything big from Adeleye? And I think Adeleye will basically probably be trailing in the fight to start. He'll start working his way into the fight, and if he's going to win it, it's going to be by knockout, probably within 6 or 7, 8 rounds or so. If it goes the distance, this is a Dacres decision all over it. So I like the fight. What do you make of it all? Drop a comment loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.